Hey there. So this is going to be a video on parameter modulation in Reaper, specifically using it for production and mixing and using audio from one track to control parameters on another. There's been a few videos on this subject that are really good. Kenny Joya and John at Reaper blog have both done some. If you're looking for more of a tutorial, they have videos that already have that, but I'm more going to go over the workflow, how I'd use it, things that could be better, and a free alternative in Reaper to using parameter modulation for specifically filters, because that's a really common use of it. So I just have kind of a silly little song here. I'll use the Moog filter in the JS. The way that I like to enable or use parameter modulation is I have a keyboard shortcut for bringing up a envelope for automation. And I like to bring that up and enable it from here. If I click the little sine wave symbol, that brings up the parameter modulation window. The reason I like to do that is once you enable it, you get a little green indicator that there is parameter modulation enabled. And so I find that easier for if I'm scrolling through the project and I have lots of tracks, I can see, oh, this one has parameter modulation. So I'm going to do an Ottawa. That's cool. I have a lot of parameters here, obviously. So I think that shows how using parameter modulation, I could make this sound that was pretty simple a lot more interesting. So now I'm going to go on to trying to do a super saw pluck sound, even though it's pretty ridiculous for this style of music. I don't really know what style of music this is, but just silliness. So here is Surge, which is you can get for free now. It does a good super saw sound. I'll bring in the same Moog filter. And I'm already sending audio to the sidechain. So I'll do the same thing. Enable the track. Bring it up. And I'm going to take audio from 3 and 4. This changes the slope of the effect. So this is cool, and also another great thing about bringing up the track envelope is you can use that as your baseline. It overrides this control. So you can do some automation. To make the effect get more intense. And that brings me to kind of what I don't like about parameter modulation, or what I think it's missing. There's no way to automate the attack, release, and strength parameters inside the parameter modulation window. They have to remain as one setting. However, there is a way to write what's happening in the parameter modulation window into the automation lane for that parameter. If I put it in write mode, it actually writes what's happening in here, which is really cool. You can use that to sort of do automation. The downside for me is that it overwrites the initial baseline envelope that I had written. And it also is no longer actually responding to the drums. So if I turn up the drums or change the way that the drums sound, the envelope of the filter is no longer responding to that because I wrote it. So that's kind of too bad. I need to turn off parameter modulation because I don't want to double up the effect. There is a cool way you can use this information though in Reaper that I don't know of any other DAWs you can do. You can convert it into an automation item by holding Alt and drawing on the bottom. And now I have all these options like this. Like I can flip it and just messing with the baseline and amplitude, I can do some really interesting things. So it's definitely useful. You can do a lot of good stuff with it, and I definitely use it. If I want to automate or modulate something on a plugin that doesn't support modulation from an audio source, which is most plugins don't support that, this makes it so you can use that with any plugin, which is amazing. So if you are just looking for a way to have more controls and automation on specifically a filter that's sidechained from another source, someone in the Reaper community has written an excellent free plugin that you can download. It's called Filther. So what it is a wave shaper and a filter. It has a wave folding section, which is this. This is the input section, and you have one filter, two filters. You can route the filters in a bunch of different ways. And then you also have a dynamic section. Dynamic section can be used to trigger from an external sidechain. What's really cool about this is, since it's not a commercial plugin, it's like a community project, they really can just include a bunch of stuff that maybe wouldn't get included with a commercial plugin because it makes it too complicated, and that they're trying to make it easy to use for users. This was developed for the needs of a small group of people, and so it has just like, it's really cool, and it's a little more experimental. It has a lot of filters, as you can see, and a great thing about it is if you bring up any of them, you do get a little description of what it does. This one is based on the guy from Sai'ke who did the glue and the drop, his filter algorithm. So that's a great low CPU usage one. I'm just going to stick with that. Another cool thing is a lot of these are actually kind of unstable and they'll break, but they can sound really cool too. So if they're unstable filters, they'll mention, watch out with this one. But I kind of like that they let you get super experimental and use things that could break at any moment. It's kind of fun. So I'll play this. And remember, you need to choose a filter. This won't do anything if you don't choose a filter. So that's a good starting place. I already am routing audio from my drums. In order to use the sidechain, I go into the like dynamic module visualizer thing, and I choose sidechain here. The threshold I can bring down here, and it's also this knob here in the dynamic section. And we can see we're starting, that red is the curve of the dynamics. So that looks like something that is close to what I want. So in order to get this to affect our filter, we go to the filter, the first filter is what I'm using. And I enable dynamics by clicking on it. And then I go to the cutoff because I want to control the cutoff. And I hold the right mouse button and drag. And that's it. So you can there's really a ton of parameters in here to dive in and craft this. And that's what I like about this plugin. And then the other thing is all of these parameters can be individually automated. So I'll do a couple. I can do okay. And you can even automate this as well. Something that's cool with the automation on items is you can use those to do loops of automation. send more actually from the drums. So yeah, I really like this effect. It has great visualizations. It's a little confusing, but once you figure out how it works, it's totally great. And also it's really cool how I've seen a lot of these days is these JS plugins with a graphic interface, which is really awesome. So great work on this. I'm going to leave a link to the thread where you can download it and also tell the guy that he did a good job. Yeah, so obviously, as I said, in Reaper, you can control any parameter with parameter modulation. So it's great for adding modulation to something that doesn't normally support it. I still use plugins a lot that enable that in their own interface because they generally have more controls. So that's why I would do that. That's why I still really like plugins like Biome and things like that that let you do the same thing but with their interface and more controls. Hopefully Reaper will support some sort of automation for that in the future. I'm not sure if it's something that could be done already with the APIs. It's possible. But anyway, thanks for watching, and hope you learned something, or at least it was sort of interesting. And yeah, check out Filther. It's great. Thanks.